Welcome, everybody. So good to see you all. It's been honestly forever. I can't remember the last time we had one of these episodes. Andrew, how are you? It's been so long.
It's been too long, Claire. How are you? I'm doing fantastic right now. I'm very, very happy to realize that the strategic Bitcoin reserve went through as predicted.
Damn, it's almost like you called it.
It's almost like I called it, guys.
No, it's good to hear your voice. It's been a rough couple of weeks, to be honest. I'm still pretty much trying to like catch up after consensus and ETH Denver. It's been over a week since I've gotten back, but it still feels like I'm trying to just trying to regain balance with everything. So hopefully,
Yeah, you
hopefully, what's that?
you've been at work. You've been doing a lot of traveling for this stuff lately, but doesn't go unnoticed. You've been doing really well.
Thank you,
Uh,
my friend. Appreciate you.
yeah,
Well, guys, let's give everybody a second to just yeah to just jump in, and if you guys could actually do us all a favor and just retweet this space, that would be much appreciated as always. And yeah, let's just give it a couple minutes. All right, guys, welcome. Good to see a bunch of familiar faces here and also some unfamiliar faces as well. Awesome to meet you guys and see you guys. So today we're going to be talking about the strategic Bitcoin reserve and what this means for Bitcoin, what this means for the entire ecosystem, what this means for our bags. Maybe we could discuss the state of like the current market a little bit. Um, but yeah, Andrew's pretty much going to be taking the lead here with this because he's the one that has most of the knowledge with this. So would love for you to bless us with your knowledge, my friend.
sure. The strategic Bitcoin reserve and what this means for our bags. I'm pretty sure that's the one question that's on everybody's mind right now because well, for one thing, apparently in the short term, it means nothing good. I mean, the price of the whole market is tanking after receiving some of the most bullish news we've ever gotten in this space. But I think that in regards to short-term price, I think that just has to do with macro factors. I think that has to do with Trump's tariff war and like geopolitical uncertainty right now. And crypto and Bitcoin tend to sell off in those areas. It's also very normal to have pullbacks like this in the middle of a bull market. So, like if you look at the 2017 bull market, for example, there were multiple, 20 to like 30% pullbacks and beyond. And so, in retrospect, even though I'm not going to say that I expected a pullback like this, but in retrospect, I probably should have because these things are actually historically normal for Bitcoin at least, and it's probably nothing to worry about. And a lot of analysts, including Kathy Wood from ARK, Larry Fink from BlackRock, I've seen Pompliano saying the same thing. A lot of people think that stocks and Bitcoin, like they're really poised to go higher later this year, but that we're going through some temporary kind of pain and a slowdown right now. So I think that's worth all putting aside for now. Like the key here, I think, is just to be patient and to really don't fade the fact that Bitcoin getting a strategic reserve from the United States of America is some of the most bullish news we could ever receive. And that if there's a time that you should be buying the dip, it's probably now. Not financial advice, but I think the establishment of the strategic reserve, uh, we had a spaces about this in the past where I delivered my prediction for why I thought the United States was going to buy Bitcoin and why I thought they were only going to buy Bitcoin. And I'm glad to say that it ended up being correct because when when the strategic reserve was created in the executive order, um, David Sachs and the people who wrote the order, they created a very clear delineation between the strategic Bitcoin reserve and the digital assets stockpile. So, in my opinion, the digital asset stockpile is basically a nothing burger. It's a very fancy sounding name, and it kind of gives some uh, a pat on the back basically to the cryptos beyond Bitcoin. But effectively, for what the United States is doing with it, it makes no changes. So the digital asset stockpile basically says we have this portfolio of crypto assets that we have already seized from uh, like in law enforcement actions, right? So if we're placing, if there's like a big hack at an exchange, or like some North Koreans took some money and we're going to go and recover that money back, the United States has some other cryptos that are lying on its balance sheet. So those cryptos have now just been recognized as part of the digital asset stockpile. However, within the executive order, uh, Sachs, Trump, all the people in charge of this specifically said that they don't plan to deliberately acquire more assets as part of the stockpile unless it's part of those sorts of law enforcement seizures. So, in other words, there's not going to be any kind of buy pressure on the market from the US government here. The other distinction is that with the digital asset stockpile, there's not going to be any um, promise to not sell the assets. Um, the executive order explicitly says that sales of the assets as part of portfolio management within the stockpile is completely on the table, and that's at the Treasury Secretary's discretion. On the other hand, with the strategic Bitcoin reserve, both of those things are reversed. So, on one hand, the strategic Bitcoin reserve promises, as Trump promised back in July at the Bitcoin conference, that 100% of the roughly 200,000 or so Bitcoin that the government currently holds will be hodled. They're not going to continuously be sold off as the previous administration would do, because they were bearish on Bitcoin and they wanted to nuke the market because they hated us. On the other hand, there's a specific stipulation within the order that the Commerce Secretary and the Treasury Secretary can come up with budget neutral strategies for acquiring more Bitcoin if they can find a way to do so that doesn't create any incremental costs on the taxpayer. So that opens up a world of possibilities where the government could potentially be buying Bitcoin as long as it doesn't involve them having to dig into the taxpayer's pocket. Um, I've been rambling for a little bit here, so Claire, if you have any questions, you're free to jump in. Just interrupt me whenever you feel.
Yeah, no, you're providing clarity for me because I honestly I did not read the executive order. I literally copy pasted that into Chat GPT and I was like, tell me the summary, my friend. But it basically, like what from my understanding was that even Bitcoin was going to be all the accumulation was going to be from like just like crimes and things of that nature. I didn't realize that there was a difference um, between the strategic Bitcoin reserve versus the crypto digital, like whatever asset stockpile. So I'm very happy to hear that there's a big difference here. So you're providing clarity. Please go on.
Sure, I'll keep hammering home that point because even on Bitcoin Twitter, where I'm constantly circulating, or on Bitcoin Maxi Twitter, where we're like constantly trying to cheerlead for Bitcoin, there was a lot of confusion and a lot of FUD going around, and frankly misinformation from people saying what you just thought was the case, which is that, oh, this is a nothing burger, the government isn't actually going to buy Bitcoin, it's completely symbolic, blah blah blah. And that's either because they didn't read far enough into the executive order or into David Sachs' statement, where he said that the government could use budget neutral strategies that don't have any incremental cost on the taxpayer to acquire more Bitcoin, and that the Commerce Secretary and the Treasury Secretary have the authorization to come up with those strategies. Either they didn't read that at all, or they did read it and they read it in a very negative light, or they thought it was something that the government, they tried to make it sound like something significant even though it doesn't mean anything, because some people, when they hear budget neutral or they hear no incremental cost of the taxpayer, they think that's not possible. They think, well, how are they going to acquire more Bitcoin without costing the taxpayer anything? The money has to come from somewhere, right? And so this is probably the government's way to make it sound like they're doing something even though they're not, and they're actually leaving us out to dry, and we're all being fooled. So these are some of the things that the skeptics about the Bitcoin reserve are saying. And it's mostly all of the same people that were skeptical about the government ever coming in to form a strategic reserve or to buy Bitcoin. And so once again, I'm going to step in and I'm going to say, you guys are wrong again. The people, well, not you, Claire, but like the people who have been saying this, I think are wrong again. And the government is actually going to buy Bitcoin. And there's a reason that line was put in there. So if anybody's been paying attention to the news today, there was some more news around the strategic Bitcoin reserve, which was that Senator Lummis has reintroduced her bill again to establish the strategic Bitcoin reserve and specifically to acquire 1 million Bitcoin for the United States and equivalent legislation. I haven't looked into the exact nature of the equivalent legislation, but equivalent legislation roughly has been introduced in Congress to accomplish the same thing by another Congress or in the House. So why is this significant? Because the government's or Senator Lummis's strategy for acquiring 1 million Bitcoin, that's already been explained by her publicly and to her fellow congresspeople and most likely to President Trump, would involve no incremental costs on the taxpayer. The strategy is very simple. It's to take the government's existing gold reserves and sell a fraction of them in order to acquire more Bitcoin. Now, why is this genius? It's genius for two reasons. One reason is that the government currently basically doesn't recognize the value of the gold on its balance sheet at all. The gold on the Treasury's balance sheet is currently still valued at the price of gold back in 1971 when the United States moved off of the gold standard. So the price of gold at the time in dollar terms was roughly 1/50th, I want to say, of what it is now, possibly less. So it's a tiny fraction. It's like 2% of the value. So what she's proposing is just to revalue the gold that's already on, that the government already technically owns, which would create a windfall of several hundreds of billions of dollars on the government's balance sheet. And so that would create the room to go and sell some of that gold in order to go and buy Bitcoin. The second reason this is genius is because the way she's presented this is, I want to say, very politically feasible and non-controversial. See, in the executive order, when David Sachs, and the way that David Sachs has talked about this publicly, they have explicitly referred to Bitcoin as digital gold and to the strategic Bitcoin reserve as a digital Fort Knox. Now, that is genius positioning because they're creating an equivalency between Bitcoin and gold. And so when you propose potentially selling the gold for Bitcoin, you're basically just saying we're going to do a swap out. We're going to swap out old, archaic analog gold, some of it, for 21st century digital gold, which has been outperforming the analog gold for the past decade and a half. When you present it this way, it makes it seem like it's something that the government really has already been doing, but they're just going to accelerate it and doing so in a way that gets up in front of every other nation, every other competitor. And so if you present this to many of the Republicans in Congress, who are, frankly, a lot of them already are gold bugs, and they're kind of nostalgic for the time that the US government and the US dollar ran on a gold standard, this is very exciting for them. And so they can look at this and think, oh, wait a second, that actually makes a lot of sense. And this doesn't seem like some cockamamie idea. And Bitcoin is digital gold, and you're officializing it. So that is one strategy that the government can use to acquire Bitcoin, and a lot of it, and get all the way up to 1 million BTC without costing the taxpayers today anything. And I do think the government is going to do that. Now, full disclosure, David Sachs has said that they haven't had these discussions yet. They haven't had the conversations about what exact strategies they would use to acquire more Bitcoin. But my sneaking suspicion is that that's a lie. They definitely have had these conversations. And the executive order was written in such a way such that you can only have one clear conclusion, logical conclusion for what strategy they're going to use. It's probably going to be selling the gold, and that's what Levis is already planning to do. So I'm very bullish. I think that's going to happen in the same way that the strategic Bitcoin reserve happened, and in the same way that Trump freed Ross, and in the same way that Trump got SEC Chairman Gary Gensler fired on day one. Like, a lot of these things that people are saying aren't going to happen because it seems too good to be true. It's happening, guys. Like, Trump and his administration and the party around him are pro Bitcoin, and they want to serve our industry as fast as possible. They're on our side. It's not like the previous administration. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, but to also add to that as well, it's like just because we have this like crypto friendly political landscape now, like doesn't mean that everything's going to be like bullish in the short term, right? Like obviously the
Yep.
if we look at the current like market, obviously like macroeconomics plays like a major role here. The tariffs play a major role here. Obviously, like the main safety of, or the main priority of the president is going to be like the safety of the country, right? As well as many other things. But I do think that I still think that obviously cryptocurrency and Bitcoin is going to be um, it just obviously prioritized a lot more now that we have a crypto friendly like presidency or political landscape. But I guess like like I was just like thinking about like what this actually like means for Bitcoin. And one thing that's like great to consider here is that I think in the past when governments would, or when the government actually acquired Bitcoin, like from, like you said, from like exchange hacks, things of that nature, or crimes, anything in that vicinity, they basically would like auction off that Bitcoin, right? And so there was so much sell pressure that would come as a result of that. Now we're actually going to see the complete opposite of that. So that's obviously going to be so beneficial for Bitcoin. That's going to be so beneficial for the entire cryptocurrency ecosystem. And I do think that a lot of it's also going to like bring about a lot of institutional confidence as well for the US government to be, establishing a strategic Bitcoin reserve. This is obviously a major deal. So it's very exciting to see the long term I guess results that are going to come as a result of this shift with the government. So it's very exciting to be a part of this, guys. I mean, this is pretty much like a historical milestone. We're literally experiencing history in the making. Like, can you guys imagine like last cycle, even like talking about something like this? Obviously, like we all saw this coming. This, cryptocurrency or Bitcoin specifically. It's more than just a digital asset, right? It's becoming it's a way to position yourself as a key leader in global order. And obviously, major institutions are recognizing this, governments are recognizing this. So they're all kind of competing against each other to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible. So obviously, this was very much going to happen. But, still, like, we were all praying for 100K Bitcoin last cycle, and so it's beautiful to kind of see everything kind of come into fruition and see that Bitcoin, crypto, Web3, this is very much our future, and we're seeing it unfold like right before our eyes. Um, but yeah, Andrew, did you have like some other points about like, just thoughts you had on what else this meant for Bitcoin or just for the entire ecosystem?
I do. I'd like to go on one last little rant before we open the floor up to some of our audience to come and give their takes. But I also think because you pointed out that this is bullish for everything in the ecosystem, and I completely agree. I mean, the administration is opened as is becoming open and permissive and non-hostile to like the crypto industry as a whole. But I do think it's worth noting that there is a fundamental shift taking place around Bitcoin in particular that people really need to pay attention to with this reserve. Because as I pointed out, the government has created a clear delineation within their own strategy between Bitcoin and the rest. Now, what do I mean by that? I don't mean that Bitcoin is getting any regulatory advantages over the rest of the crypto space. In terms of how the government treats the industry from a regulatory perspective, they've always been very, but like as a top down giver of order, the government isn't picking any favorites here. And that's exactly what they should be doing. They should be allowing for a free market as the United States stands for. But when it comes to the United States' own positioning, acting as their own participant within the system, deciding, okay, we want to buy certain assets, buy certain strategic assets. What do we want to get? Um, the United States government just told you what they're getting, and they're only picking Bitcoin. That is the asset that they want to buy. That is the one that they feel is most valuable to them to strategically acquire. Notice the names of each of the two different crypto reserves. There's the strategic Bitcoin reserve, And then there's the digital asset stockpile. One of them is strategic, the other is not. This is a strategic play from the government to acquire Bitcoin for their own benefit as a participant within this system. Now, recognizing this is really, really important because if the market wasn't telling you guys this already, certainly the US government also can tell you this. Like Bitcoin dominance right now is it continues to climb higher. I believe today Bitcoin in terms of market cap dominance lapped Ethereum for like the seventh time. It's right around there. It's about 7 times the value of ETH right now. The ETH BTC ratio continued to collapse. The Bitcoin market dominance, even though the market like as a whole is going down in terms of US dollar prices, Bitcoin is going down the least, and so market dominance is rising, and so it's above 61% at this point, going on 62, and that includes stable coins, which is very strange behavior for a bull market because most people expect that in a bull market the altcoins would have their time in the sun, but that's not what's happening this time, guys. There's a transformation taking place where Bitcoin is getting recognized as the asset, like the money, and it's going into a class of its own. And this really is the theme of this cycle is Bitcoin is coming back. Bitcoin is being made great again, you could say, but it's making it's making its rise above the rest, and there's a very clear separation. And one way I think you could describe the separation isn't I'm not going to say that like it's Bitcoin and then everything else is garbage. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that everything else, um, you can basically view them as speculative tech investments or something that uh, you could almost view them as like equities or like a different form of equity, which has promise to deliver a kind of revenue in the future, but there is counterparty risk there. There are risk parameters, there are failure modes, and these are investments like altcoins, I'm saying, which have competitors. Bitcoin is something else entirely. It doesn't have any competitors. Nothing is competing with it in the realm of trying to be money, and it's going to be the money of the world. And not only does it not have competitors, but money specifically, there is no larger total addressable market than trying to be money. We're talking about something to be the store of value of the world, like the total addressable market there is within the hundreds of trillions of dollars. So Bitcoin really has, even though it's a larger value than all of the other cryptos, it still arguably has a higher way to go than the rest of the cryptos because its total addressable market, it it can go way beyond the $2 trillion peak that it's hit so far. It could go into the hundreds of trillions with time as the world adopts Bitcoin as that standard. And the United States getting on board and recognizing explicitly Bitcoin as that store of value asset, that's going to trigger many other countries to get on board and many other sovereign wealth funds and whatnot to begin recognizing Bitcoin the same way. And they're going to allocate to it just like that. They're not going to allocate to it anymore in like little driplets because they view it as some speculative tech investment or like a hot sauce of their portfolio. That perception is changing. They're going to start allocating to it in much larger doses because they view it as quite the reverse of that. They view it as a safe asset that they can allocate to with size. And frankly, I think if they now recognize this, but then they also recognize that Bitcoin still has a ton of growth ahead of it, well, I mean, what asset can you find on planet Earth that has better risk reward than Bitcoin at this point? And so I wouldn't be surprised to just see a flooding into Bitcoin over, say, the next few years, particularly if the strategic Bitcoin reserve gets passed Congress and like stamped into law by the US government. That'll be a whole other level of legitimization. You really can't get any further than that. So I think that's worth looking at in this market when you're thinking about what to allocate to. Claire, I'm always telling you, I'm like, don't overthink it. Just left curve it this cycle. Just focus on Bitcoin. You don't have to overcomplicate it with everything else. Okay, like the market is speaking for itself right now. That's the way to go. Just focus on BTC. This thing, it's hit a whole new stride at this point. That's my ramble.
Hey man, shots fired at all the degens here. Come on now. Come on. All right. I love my XRP and my Cardano, like come on. Just let's leave this for another time, right? But no, I'm on the same page as you, like honestly, like I've mentioned time and time again, my asset or like my portfolio was down 70%. It's currently down 85%. So it's in the absolute gutter. Thank God I took your advice and started accumulating some Bitcoin. It was time. It was time. I got orange pilled by Andrew. So but yeah, I completely agree with you, my friend. It's amazing to see Bitcoin becoming recognized as a strategic asset, right? Like, I think the US formally treating Bitcoin as a reserve also kind of like strengthens its legitimacy as well and kind of like cements it as this major financial asset globally. So it's honestly very exciting to see like just where we're going to where we're going to find ourselves like in the next couple of years. But I would love to give everybody a chance to like come up, chat, talk. Also, I did want to share for those of you coming in from our community, I did want to share the secret code with you guys today, which is SBR. So it's Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, but you have to write it as SBR. And I do want to actually talk a little bit about like some community related things that are going on as well. But we could do that towards like the end of the call. But for those of you that have requested to come up, we would love to hear from you, Lord Dre. I think this is the first time you're up on our space. Welcome. It's good to have you. I think we've been in multiple spaces together, my friend. But it's been a while. I've kind of been MIA a little bit. But it's good to see you, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm good. I am good. I just came up because BitcoinOS is hosting. I just wanted to come and hear what's going on. I am an investor in this project. I've been following up a long time ago. I like what you're building, trying to scale Bitcoin, uh, giving it a use case so we can Bitcoin DeFi is the future. Yeah. So I'm just following up with everything's going on. I've been here for a long time, following up the project, reading about it and introducing it to my community. So when the pre-sale was live, I showed it to my community. Oh, this is people doing some great somewhere. So I would like you to get involved. And yeah, so I'm just monitoring the situation, how the project is going. And yeah, I
That's
just like
amazing.
to pay attention on it.
This makes me so happy to hear because although we were like running into each other in spaces, I didn't know that you had actually, that you actually had known about Bitcoin OS. So that's very exciting, and it's always exciting to me when I talk to somebody and I'm like, hey, we're literally bringing smart contract functionality and programmability to Bitcoin, and they get excited because it's a very exciting thing, guys, to see Bitcoin evolve after the narrative for the last 15 years is that it's just been this like dormant like giant, you can't do anything with it besides it being
Yeah,
linked to a
Bitcoin has just been like, oh, let's go to the exchanges and speculate, right? And I didn't like that. That's not what Satoshi wanted, right? And with this tech right now, we can have all the DeFi
right, yeah, and
protocols.
sorry, am I cutting out
Yeah.
or
Am I cutting out?
it's either you or it's me. It might be you.
Oh,
Andrew, do you know?
I could hear both of you just fine. I didn't sense any cutting out.
Oh, okay. Well, to me he's cutting out and maybe to him I'm cutting out, so interesting, guys. Web 2 technology, gotta love it. But yeah, no, my friend, I completely agree. Obviously, it's just been limited to being this store of value, peer-to-peer payment system, barely, because it's been expensive. Just yeah, being able to move, Bitcoin from wallet A to B, hold, buy, sell, trade, pretty much it, right? So it's definitely very exciting that in the next couple of months we're gonna be able to see Bitcoin do what all these other chains have been doing for the last 15 years. So very exciting to hear that you're excited, and also very exciting to know that you are also very familiar with Bitcoin OS. It seems like you've done your research. Let's bring up some other people. Soul Geek, I think is he up right now? He's connecting. But Tabatino, welcome, my friend. Good to see you. Would love to hear from you. How are you?
Uh, thank you, and greetings to everyone in the space. So, I came online and I saw Lord Dre speaking. So I know wherever Lord Dre is, there must be knowledge pouring out. so I just logged in when I saw Lord Dre was speaking. Yeah. So um, I would like to inquire and get some insights from specialists, because I know there are specialists in the space now. With the institutional adoption ongoing, should we expect the usual bear market? Because Asia, institutional bodies from Asia have been logging in, have been like, after the US announced the National Strategic Reserve, I obviously knew that Asia will have to respond. Europe will have to respond. And if these institutional bodies begins to respond, do we or should we expect the usual bear markets? This is, I don't know if this is an outside, but I just want to get an expert analysis on this. Should we expect the usual bear market after this?
I think that's an excellent question. I think that's a perennial question that I think arises every single bull market. I will say that in the last bull market, people were asking a similar question, and a lot of people began calling for what they called a super cycle because of exactly what you just pointed out, because institutions were finally getting involved with Bitcoin. And so the speculative nature of the asset and the volatility of it, they thought would kind of go away. Um, Now, we definitely do have even more institutions, like an order of magnitude greater now, involved in the asset this cycle, and we have governments getting on board. So the question is this the time? Like, is the cycle finally going to kind of collapse? And obviously, we can't predict these things for sure, but I can point out a couple of things that are worth considering as you evaluate this question, which are, uh, on one hand, I think Bitcoin can always be a volatile asset, like short-term volatile, even if like even many years from now, compared to other assets, simply because it's an always on market and it's a very liquid asset, and it's very easy for people to sell it when they need to get cash on hand. If you look at something like real estate, like it's real estate isn't something that you can panic sell, because there's like a weird global like macroeconomic thing going on where you start to get scared and you want to sell it right away. And so that's why real estate won't fluctuate as heavily. Real estate also has like completely constant demand from the fact that people need to use land for business, and they need to use it for, living in their houses or something like this. So um, Bitcoin doesn't have either of those things. So Bitcoin, it doesn't have any um, major use case besides just being a store of value, a monetary asset. But it's also always on, always traded, and extremely liquid. And so when you see, say, some big event occur, like some global event, like what's going on right now with the tariffs, um, that inspires people when they get uncertain about the market. Bitcoin will be the thing they dump first, because it's easiest for them to dump. Even if something goes on over the weekend, they can go and sell their Bitcoin before anything else. So I think Bitcoin, and especially because there's no adjustable monetary policy around it to create any kind of stability around the price of it. Um, yeah, I think that's something that's going to keep it volatile for a long time to come. Now, in regards to cycles, another thing worth considering is that this cycle is looking pretty different, uh, different from any of the cycles that we've seen before. In that, if you look at the behavior of altcoins, like they're acting completely out of whack compared to previous cycles. So with altcoins, instead of having the big run up as usual, like occur towards the end of the halving year, and then the following year just being this like super crazy bull market, that would be this year. It would be 2025. Uh, Before getting the bear market, say in 2026, what we saw was altcoins, if anything, meme coins especially, had their day in the sun last year when the ETFs launched. So there was like a big meme coin mania, like Pepe was going nuts, Dog with Hat was going to the moon. And to me, it seems like everybody in this cycle, they were expecting the cycle so much that they kind of front ran. particularly in altcoins. So they all aped into their altcoins ahead of time, especially because the Bitcoin ETF launched and there was already the excitement there. But then people kind of got rid of their liquidity right then. And now you're looking at it, and it's like people don't have much left to give. There might be a lesser extent of this going on with Bitcoin. So if you look at only Bitcoin, it's a little bit harder to notice. But in the altcoin space, you definitely notice a change in the cycle. And uh, I think the moral of the story here is if a game has been going on long enough in the markets, people begin to realize that it's a game, and they start to front run the pattern, and then that the pattern kind of collapses after that. So if there's anything that might end the cycle, it might just be that recognition from the market rather than say just institutions getting involved necessarily. There's more I could have to say, but DeFi producer, you seem to have something to say. I'll let you speak.
All right, thanks for giving me the mic. Jam, everybody, Alien, Andrew, everybody on the space, or the speaker on the listener session. Yeah, so it's been a while, Alien. As I already miss you guys, like the Web3 Academy. You know, I always love being here. This place is actually where I tap more knowledge about Bitcoin and the entire crypto system. So yeah, talking about the strategic Bitcoin reserve and also the altcoins going down right now. You know, since the time Trump came in, we've been seeing altcoins performing very badly and Bitcoin booming. And now Bitcoin seems to even to be down right now. I think with what I've actually observed on the market, what's actually happening is that the way Trump is creating an hype all around cryptocurrency, like a lot of people, random people, like I even see people that had no knowledge of Web3 before, right now buying Bitcoin. Many of them say, okay, yeah, they want to buy, okay, and some of them now, seeing that Bitcoin is already gone, like there's no more big market for Bitcoin. So most of them are looking into altcoins to invest into, and most of them just go online, like search for any random altcoins, then invest into them. While they are doing this, there's a lot like people that have been holding those altcoins for long, like people that bought them way back 2017, 2018, even to 20, last year. So people that bought those coins are now selling them, and the sell rate now is greater than the demand. So people that are just coming into the space that don't really know anything about this, that they want being liquidated. So this is one of the reasons why that the market is even coming down right now. And if you notice, anytime Trump makes like one big announcement, it doesn't look that good for the altcoins. They keep on coming down because it keeps on onboarding more people into the crypto system, which makes liquidity have to saturate it, like liquidity have to flow to those people that just came. And that being done is actually causing the market to dip because many people are selling right now. Many people that have been holding their bags for long, they are selling to those who are just coming in. So for this entire system to balance, I think the hype has to reduce from Trump and a little. The hype really has to reduce because the more he's making hype around this, the more organization that doesn't even look into these things, the more they are coming in, the more they are liquidating the market, the more they're even manipulating the market. I see right now that the market is actually being manipulated a lot because you can't just expect big organizations to allow random dudes, random workers to just come and become millionaires of the crypto market suddenly. No, that's not going to happen. The system doesn't play that way. So that's why the system is actually being manipulated. So I think when the hype reduces a little, when Trump reduced the hype a little, we can actually see a balance in the market, and maybe that's when the bull run we've all be expecting will actually come. As concerning the strategic Bitcoin reserve, how it affects these markets, well, yeah, that I can't really talk much about that right now because it's actually very confusing. But anytime I notice that Trump speaks, the market tends to be red because new people are getting on board. Yeah, so this is just my little take on it. You guys can actually share your opinion on it. I'm a person. Yeah, you can have it right now.
Thank you, my friend, and it's good to see you. It definitely has been a little bit of little bit of time since we've actually connected again. I was in Consensus, and then I went to ETH Denver, so we had to kind of like put a break on the WebB Academy spaces. But it's good to be back, of course, and always appreciate your insights. Um, so King OC1, you've been requesting, and I've been trying to accept you, but I think there's a there's an issue with your account or something like that.
Yeah,
Is that you as well?
yeah, GM,
Is that the
everyone.
same account?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
king of doings.
Your account is King OC1 as well?
No, 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 no. That's
Oh,
not
okay. Yeah,
mine.
just give me 1 second. Sorry, my friend. King OC1.
Uh,
I don't know if you can like jump out and then come back in. Like I said, I've been trying to accept your request, but for some reason I keep getting an error. So if you could just jump out and come back in, that would be awesome. But I guess who was next? There's a lot of people up on stage right now. King, if you want to jump in, and the mic is yours, my friend.
all right. Thank you so much. GM to everyone in the building. GM to BitcoinOS, Andrew, and everyone in the building. Lordre, I see you. Um, I just really want to talk about a little more about. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I just want to share some of my findings about the Bitcoin OS. I was really fascinated with what the Bitcoin OS was trying to create in the crypto space. You know, for a long time, Bitcoin has not been scalable. It has not been able to interact like the other layer one blockchains, and it has been, you know, basically like a store of value. You know, bringing DeFi into the crypto space on Bitcoin network is going to be a game changer. At least I've done my little research on that, and I've found out that well, this is going to be big. It's going to be massive. So you know, I'm also an investor in it. I'm an investor. I told my few community about it, and you know, some of them did bought as well. And you know, we're hoping for the best. We're hoping for something that is going to be a game changer because the liquidity and the reputation the Bitcoin network has is going to really change a lot of things. You know, we are hoping that the crypto space would grow into a multi-trillion dollar um, liquidity in the future. So talking about the Bitcoin reserve, the Bitcoin strategy reserve, it's really it has a bad effect. Will I say bad effect? Yeah, the market is correcting itself. That's what I believe. In the previous cycle, there's always going to be correction. So it's just going to happen sooner or later. The correction will take place, and a lot of people, paper hands will sell off. A lot of people would give up and they feel this crypto is a scam. You know, everything here is just a scam and all of that. Yeah, my bags have been down. Like I wish I didn't enter this early because I really had losses. Some of them I had to to sell off and buy the ones that were long term driven. So, but I believe the market is still going to come up. It's still going to, we are going to be bullish very soon. So, the Bitcoin reserve is something that is going to help the crypto space. But as it stands, it's showing like it's a negative move for the market. But I tell you, it's not. It's not actually. So we just have to, stand with what we believe. Do your research and stand with what you believe. You understand? So yeah, that's the little I want to contribute as for now. Probably later would shed more light on some other things too.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Thank you so much. I would have to disagree. I don't think that the market crashing, the market bleeding, is a result of Trump's executive order to sign a strategic Bitcoin reserve. I think that it goes back to what was announced a couple weeks ago, which is Trump's tariffs, right? And it's continuing to evolve as well. I think on Tuesday he had said that he's actually going to add a 25% tariff on Canadian electricity and a 50% tariff on all steel and aluminum, basically regarding like U.S. imports from Canada. So I do think that macroeconomics plays a big role in cryptocurrency, in the way that the market moves. I mean, if you could actually take a look at stocks as well, stocks have also plunged, and I know that I have a lot of my friends who are in the just stock market traders and stuff, and they're also basically saying this exact same narrative, that it is honestly due to Trump's tariffs, this like potential trade wars element that's kind of like taking place. The Canadian, I don't know if it was like the who it was from the Canadian, like it wasn't the prime minister, but it was somebody from like that presidential, whatever you want to call it. I'm like blanking right now, but they were also trying to like backfire and say that, you know, we're actually going to cut electricity to some of the states in northern US, like Minnesota, for example. So I think that these types of conditions, macroeconomic conditions, play a major role in just the way that the market moves. So I think that we can't necessarily look at like short-term things and be like, oh, it's a result of this, you know? Like if you look at history, like this is just the way that the cryptocurrency space works. This is the way that any kind of like risky asset space like works, right? We basically see these market fluctuations like historically, constantly. So this is honestly not news to any of us, especially those of us who have been around for many cycles. Last cycle, we saw the exact same things. I mean, um, but Andrew, your hand is up, my friend. So I would love for you to jump in on that.
Yes, aliens, I 100% agree with you. I think sometimes to understand what's going on in the crypto market, you have to look outside of the scope of crypto news, and you need to look at global news, world news, and stories that most people are actually really, really paying hard attention to. And while the strategic Bitcoin reserve, it's been news, and it's been, it's caught in some attention from mainstream media as well. I mean, the tariffs are just overwhelmingly the story around the world right now, especially here in Canada. I can tell you, like, our local nightly news right now is utterly dominated by the tariff story. And also, the guy that you were bringing up about threatening to shut down the electricity, yeah, that's our Ontario Premier, Doug Ford. So Ontario is the largest province in Canada. He's the premier here. He just hosted an election, actually, and he just utterly dominated and like got reelected again. My own family voted him in as well, and he's fighting hard against Trump, and he has threatened to like basically pull that switch and shut off electricity to many people in like the northern area of the United States because um, we're not backing down on this, our country, and so this is getting like really, really heated, and so the dial is turning up in terms of like just how hard could these tariffs come. What are the threats going to be here? Like um, there's no really easy agreement to come out of this. Nobody wants to back down here. And I can assure you guys, we're not going to become the 51st state of the United States, as Trump keeps talking about. That is not at all on the table up here. So, yeah, that's the story right now. And that's what's affecting um, Bitcoin and crypto's prices, I believe, at least.
We're still brothers, Andrew, or siblings. We're still
We're
siblings.
still
All
best
good.
friends,
We're
okay?
still
We're
best
best friends.
friends.
But friends fight sometimes.
Nothing, nothing can tear us apart. Um, all right, let's move on to the next person. King, you have finally become a speaker, my friend. The mic is yours.
Good day, GM. Good day, everyone. Um, I want to ask about the Bitcoin OS. The Bitcoin OS. How does it scale Bitcoin? And I was curious. Can Bitcoin be scaled? And if it can be scaled through Bitcoin OS, then how then does it impact the ecosystem? How does it benefit Bitcoin? So that's my question.
Sure, I can answer that. So Bitcoin OS allows for any off-chain computation to be verified directly on Bitcoin. So to put that in very simple layman's terms, uh, Bitcoin can now read any any activity that's taking place on another blockchain. And so what that means is it can read activity that's taking place on blockchains that are much, much faster than what's going on, say, on the Bitcoin blockchain itself. So Bitcoin right now, as great as it is as a store of value asset, um, some of the greater bulls' thesis for Bitcoin to become like a currency of the world, uh, Bitcoin doesn't have the technical chops on its own to be able to accomplish that because it has 10-minute block times. Every transaction takes 10 minutes to settle. And so one thing is that if you want to use Bitcoin, say as a regular day-to-day transactional currency, it's going to be really hard because if you go to the store and you want to buy a quick cup of coffee, the idea that you're going to sit there and wait for at least what minimum 10 minutes for the transaction to settle, that's just not feasible. And so Bitcoin needs other environments to be able to attach to it that helps speed it up. With Bitcoin, the main blockchain just being the core settlement layer for those transactions. And so what BitcoinOS allows us to do, it uses zero knowledge proofs, which are a scaling solution so that you can take, say, any amount of activity that's taking place on another blockchain, roll it up into a ZK proof, and then batch it down back onto the Bitcoin blockchain in like a really tiny transaction. Like you sum up all of the transactions that took place somewhere else and you just batch it down back onto Bitcoin. Just one tiny little piece. And so they end up taking up a lot less space on the Bitcoin blockchain. Everything settles there, but all of the execution takes place somewhere else that's much faster. So the sort of blockchain that I'm talking about right now would be called a rollup. So Bitcoin OS is going to allow people to build the first rollups on top of Bitcoin, which are already a really effective scaling solution for Ethereum. So Ethereum has run into its own scaling problems, and it's the solution that's found is to build layer two rollup blockchain. So one example of a rollup would be Arbitrum. An Arbitrum processes like 40,000 transactions per second. So that's going to be way, way better for enhancing Bitcoin's actual usability, uh, building rollups of that sort compared to just using the layer one chain. Uh, and then another way that Bitcoin also enhances this is that it allows you to build trustless connections to other chains. So even though it's possible, say, if you want to move your Bitcoin from one chain to another chain, you can bridge it by basically giving the Bitcoin to a custodian, and then the custodian mints you some Bitcoin on the other side on the destination chain, and then you can use that Bitcoin, which is much faster. That is one option that's been around for years. People have been able to use the Liquid sidechain, for example, to speed up their transactions. I've personally used Liquid, but the problem with Liquid is that it's custodial, and so when you try to use Bitcoin on the Liquid sidechain, you have to trust a custodian in order to scale it for you. And that's the core problem with Bitcoin is that every time somebody's wanted to add functionality to Bitcoin or make BTC a faster or more productive asset, they've had to insert trust back into the picture, which is completely antithetical to everything that Bitcoin stands for. And so what Bitcoin OS finally brings after like 15 years is the ability to scale Bitcoin and like enhance its capabilities without having to reintroduce that major point of trust. Or at least like you can reduce the trust. You'll introduce a tiny bit of trust, but it's so minimal that it's practically irrelevant. Like you could basically just ignore it. And you can build real like seamless extensions of Bitcoin that really enhance its capabilities. So I hope that answered your question. I rambled a little bit there, but I hope that was helpful.
And I was just gonna like jump into like the trustless bridging aspect because just to kind of like simplify it even further, because I think that a lot of people don't really know what you're talking about when you talk about like custodians and stuff. Is like when you're bridging from one chain to another, typically what we see, right, when you're minting, let's say your whatever, let's say your Cardano, right, from one chain to another. What happens is it goes into a vault, and that vault is typically run by a multi-sig centralized custodian, right? What we mean by that is somebody has access, literally, people have access to the keys of that vault, right? So it's not trustless. You have to bring in this trust element. So you're literally trusting that party to basically hold on to your assets. So with us, we have a vault, same kind of system. We have a vault. However, instead of trusting a person or a party of people, you're actually just trusting the zero knowledge proof technology, right? You're trusting the cryptography to basically secure that entire transaction, right? Instead of trusting a group of people. And then the way that we actually like dial it down even further is typically these traditional bridging systems, what you see is what's called an honest majority model, which is a kind of like a security method. And with that, what that typically means is um, over 50% of basically operators who are securing that like system need to basically be like, yep, this is this person's Bitcoin or this is this person's Cardano. Um, we all kind of come to a mutual agreement and kind of let it pass, right? So 50% plus of them have to agree on that. With us, we've actually done it so that there only needs to be one honest person, right? There could be 600, 700, 800, 900 malicious people, right, who are trying to like disrupt the network or like attack the network or like steal somebody's funds. But as long as there's one honest person in that entire 6, 7, 800, 900 group of people, right, those operators who are securing the network, that's all that we need. That's all that we need for the transactions to go through seamlessly. That's all that we need for the system to work as intended. So it's what we've done is honestly like very like revolutionary, and it's completely different than what we've seen in other traditional bridging systems where they're very prone to hacking. When there's a centralized custodian, when they're following this honest majority model, that has been prone to compromise. We've seen that with the Ronin Bridge. We've seen that with Harmony's Horizon Bridge. I mean, I can name countless times that we've seen the situation and those bridges have been compromised. So yeah, I just wanted to like break it down a little bit further to just give a little bit more clarity here. But Andrew, that was great.
Let me just add to that. Let me add. Mojo is here. So Bitcoin OS, I think you remember me from last year. We spoke a lot. So let's look at this way. Okay, so what Bitcoin you remember, right? Yeah. So what Bitcoin OS is doing basically is this. Now, when we talk about ZK proofs, we mean um for example, a Mojo wants to confirm an information from Andrew, for example. However, Mojo doesn't want Andrew to know the whole totality, okay, of the information. He wants to just confirm to Andrew that Mojo was born on March 10th, 2025. So I don't want him to know any other thing about me. Okay, so basically, what Bitcoin OS does is it confirms that, okay, it responds to that challenge by verifying that information to Andrew without allowing Andrew have access to any other information or the whole of the secret. That's basically what ZK proves how they work. So Bitcoin OS isn't just doing that because they can do it. No, they're doing it securing that transaction on Bitcoin. As you and I know, Bitcoin is the most decentralized and most secure network on the planet. Maybe you've been to Mars. I don't know. Maybe in Mars or Jupiter, there's some other blockchain that's better. But right now, where we live on Earth, Bitcoin is the best right now. Okay, so we've talked about this last year. I was on Spaces last year and we discussed this very well. I remember I made a very good input that time. So basically, it is integrating almost every. It's like a mother chain right now. Okay, you can look at maybe Bitcoin OS for all the way from Cardano, Arbitrum, Merlin. They can all work together because it's basically like an AVS. I described it last year like an AVS and actively validated system. Okay, where everything can be validated and confirmed on the Bitcoin operating system. So this is something that has not been done before, and using the power of Bitcoin in terms of security, in terms of course, decentralization is something that we should be looking at because it
Hi.
chain. Who's this, please?
Lastborn, if you could just wait to speak, my friend, that would be much appreciated. Mojo, go ahead.
Okay, so it now enables Bitcoin as a chain to not just be able to interact, but to be useful. We used to have Bitcoin as just something people like to hold. Institutions, organizations, they just want to hold it and, let's stay with it. I'm going to stick to it. I'm not going to sell it. No, it's going to make Bitcoin to be productive. That's what Bitcoin OS is all about. Making Bitcoin useful, making this tech productive for everyone else on chain. So it's like going back to our mother. Like Bitcoin is the mother of everything, right? So it's like going back to mom and like, hey mom, I think now you think you're old, but you're not so old. You can do every other thing that everyone can do now. Okay, basically. So yeah, that's what Bitcoin OS is all about. So I wanted to maybe do your own research and read more about them. Last year we did a lot of spaces about Bitcoin OS, and I think we could scale it further because again, you want to look at the integration of about three technologies here. Okay, Micro Mesh is there, Grail is there, and Bisnack is there. So it's all about integrating all these technologies to provide solutions that can be used by any other chain on the planet on Bitcoin. Okay, so if you grab this, then you're good to go. Okay, Andrew, go ahead, please.
Wait, wait,
Mojo,
wait. Wait, are you a team member, or like did we hire you because this man knows everything? Merkle Mesh, we got Bitsnark, we got the grill. Like
Mojo, that was
preaching,
fantastic,
preaching.
man. That was
Yeah, that
fantastic. I feel
was.
like you're about to steal my job because that explanation was better than anything I could have given.
Hey, I'm
But
stepping
that,
down, man. I'm stepping down. Mojo, head of community right here.
but yeah, Mojo, that was fantastic. I thought you're. Thank you for explaining ZK proofs in simple terms for the community as well. That was very helpful and it was accurate. You've clearly done your research. You mentioned Merkle Mesh and Grail and whatnot, and like the different technologies that we're bringing to the table. And the common thread between all of these technologies is that we're providing a ZK powered suite of technologies that allow Bitcoin to build trustless connections to other systems, including other blockchains. And so what that means is every chain, when they integrate with Bitcoin, they can create a mutually beneficial relationship with Bitcoin. So one of the benefits that you pointed out for the other chains is that they can anchor themselves and their security into Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the most secure and decentralized chain. And so they have a lot to benefit and a lot to gain from just saying, hey, now we inherit Bitcoin security alongside all of the programmability we offer. The other benefit is that they plug into Bitcoin the asset, because with the Grail bridge, Bitcoin, real like decentralized Bitcoin, can actually move from the Bitcoin chain over to their chain and like get all kinds of functionality. So they're plugging into the largest asset base in crypto, soon to be like even more dominant, as I was explaining earlier in the space. And then the other side of it is that Bitcoin benefits, because now Bitcoin benefits from connecting with all these other chains because it gets all of the functionality of those different environments. You can get the speed of Solana, you can get the DeFi ecosystem of Ethereum, you can get the privacy of like Zcash or Monero or something like this. So it all comes together. It's a really beneficial, and really nobody can particularly be mad about it. It's completely symbiotic, and it's a really healthy way of healing the divide within crypto. So we really don't need to have tribalism anymore. Like we can all actually just come together and work together instead of having these like weird segments where like the Ethereans hate the Bitcoiners and the Bitcoiners hate the Ethereans. We can actually just work together on the things that we do best. So yeah, that was fantastic, Mojo. Thank you for that.
Yeah, Andrew, if you remember, is it last year when we talked about this last year? I tried to like go back. I did a thread last year when I tried to explain the way blockchains have evolved. You know, from monolithic blockchains to modular blockchains and now aggregated blockchains. So if you want to understand aggregation, let's break it down now. When we say we're using Merkle Mesh, the technology, for example, developed by Bitcoin OS, we're saying that aggregation simply means you are going to be able to function on Arbitrum, okay? You're going to be able to do something on Arbitrum despite sitting back on Optimism, for example, or on Base or Ethereum through this technology and without being concerned about what you're doing on another chain. This Bitcoin OS is going to be like your middleman. So you don't need to care about how it happens. That's how aggregation works. Okay, so the Bitcoin OS is just in the middle. You're just going to be having the UX on your user interface or experience, just on seeing what's happening. Meanwhile, in the background, Bitcoin OS is going to the different chains and linking them those data up, okay, solving the problems, either bridging or whatever you want to do, and then on the front page, you're just seeing your results. That is what aggregation means, okay? So this is what they're doing with MicroMesh, okay? So making sure that you can, for example, let's say you can actually bridge an NFT, okay, from Arbitrum chain, and you bridge that NFT, for example, to Solana, for example, and then you don't need to know how it's done. You don't need to know the whole steps it encounters. You don't need to know what happens in the background. Bitcoin OS stays in front of you. You can see Bitcoin OS and it does everything and gives you the result. That is what aggregation means in like in I would say basic layman terms. Okay, so this is what this is doing right there. We talked about this last year extensively. I remember attending a lot of your spaces and contributing, and I feel like we should scale it further this this year for people to know more about what Bitcoin OS is actually doing. So you want to go back and maybe do your own research, understand these, how they work, and begin to build solutions around them that can implement Bitcoin OS.
Mojo, you just earned yourself a follow, man. That was great. I really appreciate that you're pointing out that we're going to offer blockchain interoperability. Uh, Quite literally, in it, when I said that we're healing the fragmentation in the crypto space, I don't just mean in like the spiritual sense or like the friendly sense of getting rid of tribalism, but I do mean that literally. I'm sorry, who is that? Okay, I'll continue. I do mean literally that we're going to be like healing the divide and creating unity between blockchains because we want to be a kind of invisible middleware between all of the other chains so that you can move seamlessly between them and Bitcoin OS is the common connector. Now, like Bitcoin OS is making this a big priority because one mistake I would say that Ethereum has made with its own L2 ecosystem is that even though it's got all of these different L2s, um, these L2s are not really interoperable. And so when people choose to use another system, it takes a long time to move from using one system into another system. And so all of the users and all of the liquidity gets fragmented between every chain. And so now that Bitcoin is having its wake up moment and it's going to be possible to build real L2s on top of Bitcoin as well, we want to try and get it right from the start. And so we're focusing instead of on building our own, just building our own L2 that's going to fragment liquidity from all of the other people building their own L2s. We're saying, wait a second. And we're getting ahead of the curve. And we're trying to say, listen, we have just the middleware connector so that you can build your own connections to Bitcoin from other blockchains. And from here, everybody can just plug in through us. And if you all plug into the same infrastructure, the same middleware, the same Grail vault, um, you can have interoperability between all of these systems. Whereas if we don't take that approach from the start and everybody just goes and builds on their own bridge systems, you end up in some tragic sense of the system that's less than the sum of its parts. So we've heard the expression of when things are like very synergistic and they work well together, they're more than the sum of their parts, and they have really strong teamwork. Crypto's in this weird spot where it's become less than the sum of its parts because you have a bunch of blockchains and they all do something very, very similar functionally, but all they do when they all exist at once is they kind of fragment liquidity and users between each other. And so that it shatters the network effects that money and a decentralized network really needs to have in order to keep the whole thing working smoothly. And so Bitcoin OS wants to unite the whole fragmented blockchain ecosystem. And we want to do it around Bitcoin, using Bitcoin as the anchor, because Bitcoin is the most recognized blockchain and the most secure blockchain and the first one. It's the one everybody can agree that, like, okay, nobody really hates Bitcoin. Like, even the biggest altcoiners in the space, if you talk to them quietly, they'll probably tell you that Bitcoin is like one of their biggest bags, even though they don't talk about it a lot. Because, like, obviously it is. Bitcoin is the biggest asset in the space. Like, nobody, the evidence speaks for itself. Everybody holds Bitcoin here. So if there's one base that we can get everybody to unite around, it's this chain. But that's it for me. Aliens, you got anything to add?
Yeah, no, I absolutely love the tangent that you're on right now. It's giving me so much energy. But yeah, I mean, in terms of this whole like fragmentation situation that's going on, right? Like we have this like multi-chain fragmented ecosystem, right? And fragmentation actually causes a lot of problems, like the divided liquidity. It could be a poor user experience, security risk, duplicated developments, honestly, like just different types of complexity barriers, and also slower institutional adoption, right? So now we are basically, what we're doing is we're connecting the entire cryptocurrency ecosystem, anchoring it back to Bitcoin, like Andrew said. And now that 1.9T that's been sitting dormant in Bitcoin can flow into the entire Web3 ecosystem, into the entire cryptocurrency ecosystem, and everybody can basically get a piece of the cake, right? So it's very exciting to kind of see this all come into fruition. And Mojo, you got to follow from me as well, my friend. Like that was really love the passion there. You've most definitely like done your research, like probably more than probably more than most. And the way that you explained it was very like simple, which is exactly like what we need. We need more simplified explanations, especially when it comes to projects that are very like technically intricate, right? When you're talking about ZKPs, rollups, whatever, it's not it's not something that anybody understands. I know that right now, like a lot of like the decentralized community alliances here, the DCA community, and when I first came in and started talking about ZKPs, everybody was like, just like they loved it, they absolutely loved it, but they had no idea what the hell I was talking about. So I'm like, all right, we need to dial it down, we need to start bringing in some analogies. So like you, I usually try to bring in as many analogies as possible, especially when it comes to ZKPs. My favorite one, to be honest, like because a lot of people here, I'm sure you still don't know what the hell zero knowledge proof technology is. So I'm gonna just explain it to you real quick. So imagine if you're going to like a club, right? And you don't want the bouncer to know any of your private information. You just want them to know that you're over 21 so that you can get in, right? So what you do is you wear a badge that basically tells the bouncer that this person is over 21, but the bouncer doesn't see your information, doesn't know your name, your email address, your whatever, none of your birthday, none of that, right? The badge basically just confirms that you're over 21. And so as a result, the bouncer sees that and lets you in, right? So that's kind of like how ZKPs work. It's a way of like basically showing that you know a lot of information without sharing, revealing any of the private information, right? And this obviously helps with privacy. This helps with scalability. There's so many benefits to ZKPs, and I think that we haven't even seen like the we've only seen like the tip of the iceberg in terms of like what we can do with ZKPs. So it'll be really interesting to see that space like evolve. But Mojo, your hand is up, my friend. Go ahead.
Yeah, Alien, I wanted to add that when we talk about the fact that we have so many chains doing different things, of course, unique stuff, we agree and understand. Um, it of course fragments the potential of this technology. Andrew, I'm sure Andrew wanted to say that. It begins to fragment the potential of blockchain itself. Because people seem to see blockchain as just that crypto thing, that thing for buying and waiting and speculating and oh no, that's not true. There's a lot more we can do with this technology. So the fact that we're all fragmented, okay, I love Solana, I'm a Solana maxi. Okay, this guy's an Arbitrum maxi, this guy's a Thorn maxi, there's a Cardano maxi here, there's a core blockchain maxi, and stuff like that. So it fragments the potential of harnessing the uniqueness of these chains with this tech. But with Bitcoin OS, what does it do? It unifies everything. Okay. On top of that, we have the problem, the fact that with this solution now, we are able to reduce the increased complexity and ambiguity that comes with using the blockchain. Okay, some people want to do stuff on one chain, or they want to move some asset on one chain to another, and they don't know. Okay, for example, there are some markets where you cannot access certain stuff. You want to do something on this protocol, but you cannot access that protocol because in your country is restricted, for example. Okay, I'm giving you a typical real life example right now. Like this stuff is restricted in your country, but with Bitcoin OS, it overrules all that. So it this increase in complexity by different blockchains doing different things under different jurisdictions, under different regulations. Bitcoin OS solves that problem, simple and short. So we have one of the best technologies around. On top of that, anchored on the most secure and decentralized chain on the planet. I repeat, I don't know if you come from Pluto. Alien is here. I don't know. Alien, are you from Jupiter or Mercury or something? On this planet, this is the most secure chain that we have. I don't know where you
Hey,
come
leave the
from,
aliens
but
out of this, man. Leave the aliens out of this.
okay, so when we're talking about planet Earth, this is the best solution for it right now. Last year, I was so hot on this. I did a lot of research on this. I attended a lot of spaces. I talked to a lot of people about it. So I'm happy that I just finished my space about my project, which we just launched, called Dao Coco. And so I was about to drive out, and then I saw your space. I was like, oh, Bitcoin OS is live. I have to join and talk about them. Yeah, so that's why I'm just jumping in and of course sharing my ideas and making sure that the community gets to understand what we are building here and how useful it is, because I'm a builder and I believe that every one of us should begin to look at building solutions, because these are also solutions built for you to build more solutions. That's what it is. Bitcoin OS itself is not an end solution. It is a solution for other solutions. Okay, so it is built for you to use to solve other problems. So you need to understand how it works, where it can be applied, and then you look at the real world problem and solve it with Bitcoin OS. As simple as that.
Damn, that was absolutely beautiful, my friend. That was absolutely beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you in regards to fragmentation, like with the technology as well, right? Is we have like these amazing solutions, but then we can't really see the full potential of them due to fragmentation, right? But also so many other issues, right? You have assets that are spread across multiple chains, liquidity gets split up, you have thinner markets, higher slippage, less efficient like price discovery. I mean, there's so many issues that come with this. So it's going to be beautiful to see it all come together. And what's also amazing too is come mainnet, all our technology is going to be open source. So everybody's going to be able to like basically use it. So yeah, we're basically like mitigators, right? Like we're bringing the entire cryptocurrency ecosystem back home to the most beloved asset, the most beloved chain of all, Bitcoin. So I also hate when people bring up like, oh, do you guys have any competitors? Like, are you guys competing with anybody? It's like, no, we're not competing with anybody. We do not share that mindset whatsoever. We literally all have the same goal. We're all building towards the same exact goal, which is to literally allow Bitcoin into evolving to being able to do what all these other chains are doing without any change to its original values, without forking Bitcoin, right? And so we're all working towards the same goal. And honestly, everybody is our friend here. Every single person is our friend, and we're all working towards the same goal. So and that's also the mindset that everybody should have as well, because I know that with a lot of projects you'll see a lot of like toxicity. People will really love the project so much, they'll be so obsessed with the project so much, become so emotionally attached to it, that they're like, oh, fuck all other projects. So like we basically say, do not have that mentality. Try to like move forward with like inclusivity and interoperability and sovereignty, right? This is the complete ethos that we like embody at Bitcoin OS. So, and obviously you guys all move with that same kind of mindset. Like I already know this. We talk about it on a daily basis. um, but let's bring up like some more speakers here. I believe we had Web3505. You came up, my friend. I think we have time for probably like just one more speaker because Andrew and I have to hop off. But it's been amazing hearing from every single one of you. But Web3505, the mic is yours if you'd like to speak, my friend. All right. Well, that's that, I guess. Let me just talk about real quick before we like jump off here. So I did go ahead for those of you who are in our community, I did go ahead and share the secret code earlier in this space. So if you just jumped in and you want access to that secret code, which is for a Zeely task, by the way, you'll have to like just listen to this once it's over and grab that code. Um, so as you guys know, our sprint is done. It went from the 1st of February to the end of February, which was February 28th. We're actually going to be starting a new sprint. It's either going to be this week or the start of next week. And as you guys know, these sprints are incentivized. So the top 5 of the leadership board win $200 in USDC each. And that's just a token of our appreciation for the community. We just want to say thank you for your support, your advocacy, and this is the best way for us to kind of give back to that. So just big shout out to everybody here, the top 5 that won this round. I do want to highlight that the next sprint is going to be slightly different, and the reason for that is because there was a lot of, I want to say, like unintentional cheating that took place. I will say it was unintentional. There was cheating, but it was 100% unintentional. People saw that other people were double claiming tasks and so on and so forth, and so they went ahead and did the exact same thing. But I do want to say that at the end of this sprint, we review every single buddy's like tasks, right, individually. Like I literally went through for like the last like God, I think I've spent like maybe 10 hours, guys, just for like the top 10, reviewing everybody's task, making sure I'm not removing anything that wasn't like that was supposed to be there. And I really took a lot of time carefully like maneuvering through those tasks. So I promise you that if any of you were like, hey, like I should have been in the top five, trust me, trust me, my friend, like I put so much time and energy into making sure that everything that I did was accurate and everything that you guys did on the user end of things was accurate as well. So but regardless of that, anybody who participated in this sprint, doesn't matter if you made it to the top five, you guys are incredible. I promise you that the entire team has been seeing your advocacy, your support, your threads. You guys have been hosting like spaces about Bitcoin OS. Like we see everything. We absolutely see everything. And please don't think for a second that any of that goes unnoticed. Like we are so appreciative of the community. The only reason why we are doing these incentivized daily sprints is because we understand the power of the community. We know that the community is the absolute backbone. If we did not share that mindset, I promise you that we would not be doing these incentivized daily sprints, along with so many other campaigns that we're running and we plan on running as well. Um, so yes, so we obviously love you guys. So just shout out to every single one of you here that participated in the Zeely Sprint. As you guys know, we're also running a campaign on Galaxy as well. If you guys would like to participate in that, please join our Discord server. We have all the information over there. Like I said, guys, a new sprint is going to be starting either at the end of this week or the next week, and this is also going to be incentivized. Once again, top five of the leadership board get $200 in USDC each. Um, and then we also have a few other campaigns that are rolling out, guys, within the next 2 weeks. So please stay tuned for that because one of those campaigns is going to be absolutely massive. It's something that the entire cryptocurrency ecosystem has not seen yet. And I'm not saying that like, I'm not exaggerating here. I'm definitely not exaggerating. So please stay tuned because that campaign is it's absolutely wild. And then we also have like another smaller campaign that'll be rolling out within that same time frame as well. So please, we all want you guys to participate. Again, this is a token of our appreciation for the community. We love the community. The community is the absolute backbone here. We know that. We cherish that. If you guys would like more information on that, please join our Discord. Please join our Telegram channel, whatever fits you, whatever resonates with you. But besides that, guys, thank you to everybody that has joined today. Andrew, you are an absolute wizard, as always, just completely, yeah, like I just feel like my brain grows after I listen to Andrew. So thank you so much for all that information about the strategic Bitcoin reserve, what this means for Bitcoin, what it means for the entire crypto ecosystem, talking a little bit about the political landscape. Shout out to everybody here who's excited about Bitcoin OS. Mojo, you're amazing. Thank you so much for coming up and just sharing your enthusiasm, sharing your knowledge. That was fantastic. DeFi producer, shout out to you. Gideon, shout out to you. Lord Dre, so nice to finally talk to you, my friend. And it's so nice to hear that you're actually like, that you're actually a part of like the Bitcoin OS community, a part of the project. Absolutely love that. Web3505, got crickets from you, but shout out to you, man. Um, John, Jay, we got a lot of community members here. Brother, Blue, David, Jason, our favorite Nigerian moderator, Aris, Enger, Rotimi, Highlander, Theo. Man, we have so many people in here. We've got like, I think over 100 people. So I can't give a shout out to everybody, but just know that I see you. We appreciate you. And as you guys know, we host these every Tuesday around the same time, which is 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. We always talk about some new topics, so we'll see what comes up for next week. I think our last topic we were talking about like mastering the art of trading. Everybody jumped in and like had something to say about trading, so that was really cool. So hopefully we'll host something similar of that regard as well, because we really genuinely love like when the community comes up, when you guys start talking and sharing your tips and tricks and your advice or just sharing your knowledge. We absolutely love that. So. Thank you guys so much, and I'm wishing you guys a bullish week. Don't let the state of the markets get to your head, and we will catch you in the next one, my friends. Take care.
Catch you in the next one, folks.